Tablets have been creating buzz for quite a while. Today, more than 100 campuses are using tablets across India. They are becoming more accessible and schools are seeing the benefits. With massive encouragement from the government, major publishers, and schools, plus with the arrival of digital books, tablets are setting new example of an education system which is easy but diverse, engaging but quick. To talk on this and more, we have Mr. Ramesh Karra, co-founder Ignited Learning. Over the past few years, Ramesh has worked closely with leading schools across the country on one-on-one implementation of tablets. Actively engaging with all stakeholders, students, teachers, parents, school managements, and publishers, Ramesh understands the on-ground challenges in leveraging technology and has learned from real-life implementations on how real benefits can accrue to school managements through well-planned approaches. Followed by the presentation, Mr. Karra will be taking some questions, so you may post the questions in the little chat window on the right-hand side of your screen while we are seeing the presentation. Over to you, Mr. Karra.
Thank you for the introduction, Anu. Good afternoon, participants. Welcome to this webinar on use of how tablets are being used in education. Just to give you a quick introduction to myself, right? I'm a co-founder at a company called Igniter Learning that's based in Hyderabad. We have been working now for almost 6 years now, purely on one thing: how do you leverage the power of touch screen or personal devices in education? Over the last many years, we've been working on one-to-one deployments in schools, right? We also work in the test prep and the higher ed space, but obviously a lot of our work is in the school segment, fundamentally because that's where the buzz is around devices being used in the classroom, right? What I'm going to be doing is spending around 20 to 25 minutes walking you through a quick PPT and also a 5-10 minute glimpse on some of the solutions that schools are actually deploying in classrooms. And that's when we'll open up the floor to questions, and I'll try and address the various queries that have been kind of collated by Anu and shared with us, right? What I'll do now is I'll also just stop sharing my webcam for a while so that we can focus on the PPT, and also from a convenience point of view, the bandwidth will be a lot better for all of you. Um, and so just a sec here. Right. What I'd like you to do is just focus on your screens now while I walk you through a quick overview of what exactly is happening on tabs in schools, right? Now, all of you have heard about, I mean, there's been a buzz for a while about, iPads in schools, tablets in schools, a lot of, newspaper articles about it, and it's been happening for a while now, right? The key question is, and in fact, even in India now, this is no more like a theoretical concept. You actually have schools across the country using tablets, and these are a glimpse of some of the schools that have actually adopted tablets. And when we say tablets, what we're referring to is one-to-one deployments. That is, every student is equipped with a personal device. This could be obviously restricted to specific grades, or it could be across the school. The question really in front of all of us is, why is this happening? Why are tablets really entering schools, right? I think the first fundamental thing is related to the concept of a tablet itself, right? I think all of you have seen when you put a touchscreen device in the hands of a child, the child gets fully engrossed, he gets fully or she gets fully involved into the experience, largely because the medium obviously engages multiple senses. So children are seeing, hearing, and touching at the same time. They're not just it's not just one sense, and therefore multi-sensory learning, as we all multiple senses, obviously we all know, engages a lot more and obviously can help learn. Second thing, of course, it's very intuitive. It's very easy for somebody to use it. I mean, I even seen 1-year-old babies start swiping on a smartphone, touching, so therefore that makes it a lot more easier from a child and student perspective. Lastly, of course, it's a personal product, which means students can learn at their own pace. Right? So I think fundamentally everybody understands that tablet has a lot of potential in education. But let's come to the context of India. What's happening in India? In India, for tablet adoption, there are multiple drivers at play. I think one, we are also seeing there's a lot of buzz from the government side, right? There's a whole buzz around digital India. Government is talking about introducing tablets in schools, in government schools, talking about the whole concept of ebooks. And this is not just, lip service. These are actually, photographs of live pilots that are happening as we speak in government schools, where en masse government school children are being equipped with either tablets or hybrid devices. Governments are obviously, looking at aggressive plans to introduce tablets. So that's one big driver. The government obviously also, even from the regulatory body side, for example, CBSE did this big project called Udaan, which is about, this was about empowering girl children, where 1,000 girl children from across the country were selected, given tablets loaded with curriculum that was kind of designed by CBSE. In fact, we were the technology partners in that particular initiative. These girl children were given these tablets in obviously remote parts of the country. They were actually learning through these tablets, and once a week they would actually attend in one particular center near to their location. They would actually come to the classroom, and that's where they would actually participate in assessments on the tablet. The assessment results used to go to CBSE, and CBSE would then obviously monitor. So it was actually a blended program in that sense. And this program has obviously worked really well. Out of 500 girl children last year, 114 cleared IIT mains. This year, the program has been rolled out to more students. So 1,000 girl children from grade 11 itself have been selected. So you can see that the tablet, obviously, therefore, this is the government is playing a very aggressive role in driving adoption of technology. There's a bit of action from the courts as well. I mean, those of you who are from Bombay would be familiar that, Bombay High Court has passed law saying the bag weight has to be 10% of the weight of the child. Karnataka government has woken up and started enforcing some of this. And obviously, one of the suggestions that they have is related to, introduction of e-learning devices. So that's one big driver as well. The other big driver obviously is from the hardware side itself, right? Tablets themselves are becoming more accessible, right? A company like Samsung, which had 10-inch devices costing almost 30,000 rupees, almost 3 years back when we were actually doing aggressive 1:1 deployments. Today you have a solid, good quality device from Samsung available at as low as 16,000 rupees for children, right? So that obviously becomes that's also becomes a driver for making adoption of tablets more easy in schools. Another big driver is obviously publishers themselves, right? Versus, 4 years back to today, we are starting to see that a lot more content providers are actually delivering and designing content for, digital, for tablets, right? Whether these are, new age content providers like Tata Classic or Pearson with MX Touch or S-Chance with Tab, or even the traditional guys like Oxford University Press or McGraw-Hill, which are saying we are working on ebooks for tablets. So that's another big push. And therefore, the possibilities of what you're going to do on a tablet also are starting to expand a lot more. But I think the most important driver is really the fact that schools have actually started adopting this and are starting to see real benefits, right? While all the other are ecosystem or macro drivers, this is the real, on-ground impact that you're starting to see. We did our first 1:1 deployment of tablets 4 years back at the school in Hyderabad, in Meridian, and now across the country you're starting to see schools are actually using this technology, and the technology is maturing enough to actually add value and benefits. Question is, what are the kind of benefits the schools are seeing? Schools are essentially looking at 3 significant benefits that are accruing by using tablets in the classroom, right? First is, of course, lightening the bag. That's a very easy and a low-hanging fruit. If instead of carrying bulky textbooks to school, if you can actually digitize all of them and make it available on a single device that weighs the grams, then clearly, there's a lot of benefit that straight away accrues to the school. But more importantly, I think the other 2 benefits which are related to learning, one is the ability to engage the student, and second is the ability to empower the teacher, right? These are the 2 areas where tablets are being used aggressively, right? What do we mean by this? I'll spend a little more time walking you through each of this, right? As far as lightening the bag is concerned, I think it's pretty simple. Kids are, either, carrying just a tablet to school and leaving the print textbooks either at home, or in certain cases, they're leaving it at school, right? Publishers are coming up with digital content, ebooks. So today versus 2 years back, you actually have virtually all the top publishers are making available content that have been created in the digital format and created specifically in a tablet-friendly manner, right? And what we're also finding is that students are actually very, very comfortable with digital books, right? While, if you really look at somebody like me who's like 40-year-old, I would probably still prefer a print book. But for these kids, we are starting to realize that not only they consume digital books very quickly, they even come up with more and more suggestions on how to improve the entire experience. It's quite a revelation when you work with these kids and how the way they consume digital content. And hence, lightning bag is something that's very easy to achieve. But let's come to the more significant piece, the bit about engaging a child, right? What we've all seen is that kids today, their senses are tuned very differently. They're bombarded with a variety of stimulus, and that's where digital content that is enriched, that is, books that come to life, that is with videos or sound files embedded in it, books that are handy, are really working in a great way to engage the child, right? Obviously, a lot of this engagement is beyond the classroom, because in the classroom, we still believe that they need to pay attention to the teacher. But this is something that children are really looking at, right? And I'll also quickly show you a quick demo, 5 minutes from now, how exactly these engaging experiences are being delivered, right? Coming to the last piece, which is actually empowerment to teachers. Teachers are being empowered in multiple ways. I think the first and the easiest way in which tablets are empowering teachers is by giving them insights into how children are learning, right? Everybody understands the concept of formative assessments. Formative assessments is that as the children are learning, if you can assess how well children have understood concepts, then as a teacher, I can remedy it immediately, right? So for example, if you look at the kind of graph that is available now, right? Formative assessment, right? This is the kind of information the teachers are getting very quickly and easily using assessment platforms on tablets, right? I as a teacher do a quick test with 10 marks, and I know quickly, immediately, that say question 7 and question 10, very few people in the class have understood, then I can immediately remedy this in the class, right? Obviously, I can also do more stuff beyond the class when I understand who the weaker student, who the brighter student is. I can do differentiate instruction. But this is something that where we are seeing technology is playing a really useful role by empowering the teacher, right? Teachers are also being empowered, right, to deliver, better learning experiences, because they can also start pushing content onto devices. So they can, for example, push remedial content to weaker students. They can start challenging brighter students by giving them worksheets which focus on higher order thinking skills and the likes. So there's a lot of additional learning that can happen using these devices, right? For example, there's a school in Bangalore called Royal Concord, right? So here the teachers were very passionate about the idea of flipping the classroom, right? And all of you have heard about it, but this was a real life case study where teachers actually said, listen, for this particular topic, I'm not actually going to teach the traditional way in class. I'm actually going to ask you to look at these preloaded animations or preloaded videos on the device. A few teachers actually created a small videos themselves, and they pushed it to students on the tablets and said, listen, children, I want you to read these particular modules and come to class the next day. What happens in class? The classroom becomes a lot livelier. In the class, the focus is on, obviously, the teacher immediately kind of does a quick assessment to see have students understood the concept. The teacher then obviously facilitates a discussion around the entire concept and then makes the whole learning delivery a lot more engaging, right? The results were fantastic, right? Teachers were very thrilled about how this particular modules work. Kids obviously were a lot more engaged, because suddenly instead of the routine monotonous way, you're kind of changing the whole way you deliver. We've actually seen visible benefits in improvement in learning delivery, and of course efficiency as well. You actually save classroom time as well, right? So to quickly summarize, we're saying there are basically broadly 3 areas: lightening the bag, engaging the student, and empowering the teacher. What I'll do quickly is also give you a first-hand glimpse into how this is being achieved, right? What I'll do is I'll actually do a live demo to you of how these tablets can be done, right? What I have here is I've actually connected a tablet here. This is a Samsung Galaxy Tab E, on which we've installed an application, the application that students typically get, and I'm sharing the screen with you, right? What a student gets is typically, to begin with, digital versions of textbooks that they use in class. We work with publishers across the board, and we say, if you're using, for example, book A in English, that particular digital version of that book will be made available, right? So for example, let's say you're talking about a 4th grade kid, you actually have a digital version of a 4th grade textbook out here for student, right? Digital textbooks are in some ways very similar to the print book, right? So for example, if I want to go to topic 1.2, which is 2 Points of the Jungle, what you have is actually this exact same version of what is in a print book loaded in the device, right? I can obviously scroll up and down. I can do additional stuff that I can do typically in a print book, which is take notes, highlight, underline, right? I can, for example, take a quick, for example, post it. So, for example, I may say on a particular page, I want to say that a topic is important. Then I actually, make a note of it, right? And I save it, right? Right? Sorry, I forgot to save instance, right? All the traditional stuff that you can do with a digital book, plus over and above from. So this is a post-it that's been made out there which you can refer, right? So that's one key aspect, which is digital books. But obviously, the endeavor is to go far beyond what is there in a traditional book, right? If you remember when we were studying, we typically had a book with just say maybe black letters on a piece of paper. Here, the idea is to bring the books to life. So in this case, for example, this could mean sound files. So I don't know if you could hear that, but basically, when you click on particular words, you actually have sound, meanings of the word coming alive. Or you could have, for example, embedded audio. So in this case, there's a role play here. So actually have an audio file that is embedded, right? Which, right? So this is essentially an enriched book. So I can actually listen, right? This is not just about reading, or it could even be about, for example, I have a poem here, right? So traditionally, just like in a book, you open up and you read the poem, but you also see out here, you see a small video icon out there. So actually say I can click on that, which means there's an animated version of the poem that is being loaded and made available for the student, right?
You're a nuisance, I declare. You tease me so, it isn't fair. You bounce on me from everywhere and seize my hat and clutch my hair and tie.
Yeah, so basically the idea is that to not just give traditional plain ebooks, but to give enriched versions of ebooks. Now, when we say ebooks here, we mean this could be traditional publishers like your standard, like I mentioned, like Orient Black Swan or Macmillan or Pearson, or this could even be any of the new age content creators, right? So you're all familiar with smart class companies like EduComp or Tata ClassEdge or Pearson, all of that, right? We also say work with these companies to make available digital versions. The traditional content that is available in a smart class, that can get preloaded out to the device. So I can say, for example, in science, I want to look at more detailed animations of videos that bring concepts to life. All of that also can be preloaded and made available onto the student, onto the device. And this entire experience is offline, which means I don't need to refer to the internet to access any of this, right? What is the advantage? Obviously, this is content that I can consume at my own pace. I can pause when I want to. I can restart when I want to. It's all completely at my fingertips, right? We also have additional digital, learning modules like simple stuff like concept maps. So you could have, for example, non-linear way of rendering an entire concept. So I'm a student. I read a particular concept. I can quickly look at summaries of the entire concept in a non-linear manner, right? Or the other thing you could have is, for example, assessments, right? That are preloaded. So I finished a topic. I want to quickly check how well I've understood a topic, in which case you have tests that are preloaded that a child can take. So I can say, this, for example, is the test on, matter, right? And I can quickly take a paper and pen, solve each of my problems. And once I finish my entire assignment, I can then submit it. The machine will obviously then evaluate and give me feedback. So in this case, it's told me that I've got 2 out of 15. I can then review my performance. I can actually say, listen, what have I got right? What have I got wrong? So in this case, for example, I answered option A, but the correct answer is D. I can look at an explanation as well. It tells me what the right answer is, etc. So the idea is to give a learning experience that is a far richer and far beyond what the traditional learning experience is. The key part of all of this is this entire content experience is stitched together based on the academic institution. We offer similar experiences even for higher ed, for example, right? For IGCSE, based on the curriculum. For example, we do the same thing in engineering as well, right? But idea is right, for the school, we pretty much try and offer a comprehensive learning experience across the set of publishers that the school is most comfortable with. This entire content is loaded offline and available for the student, so he can access it anytime, anywhere. He does not depend on the internet for consuming all of this. So therefore, there's no worry about, bandwidth or experience and stuff like that. Now, the other advantage of digital content also is that I can also refer at any point in time, right, to, I'm also capturing what a student is doing. So I have a section here called stats. So I know, for example, how much time the child has spent, for example, on which topic. So I know, for example, he has spent a lot, he's actually looked at the English book, New Learning to Communicate, and within that, this is a chapter that he spent time on, and within that, which topics he's opened. All of this information is being captured and made available in the device. So there's obviously a whole host of analytics that is being made available for the student right out there, right? As a parent, I can obviously pick up the device and understand what the child is doing. But that's one part of the application. That is what is available on the device. The second part is typically a cloud-based learning engine. What does that mean? When the child brings a device to a Wi-Fi zone, all the information on what the student is doing gets synced onto the cloud, and teachers have access to what students are doing on the cloud. So I, as a teacher, know, for example, if I've asked my children to read this particular module and come, I actually know next day how many of them read the module, how many of them not read. So that information is made available to me as a teacher. That's one. Second, as a teacher, I can also start pushing content. So I can say, for example, page 4 of the book, I want to add my own YouTube video. Or at the end of this particular topic, I want to publish 1.13, a summary, which is my own PPT. So teachers can start dynamically uploading content. Student downloads the content is made available offline, and then I can obviously consume it. So dynamically through the year, the book keeps getting, the learning resources of the students keep getting enhanced. Why are we doing it in this particular way? Because we want to address the challenges of India in India of infrastructure. We are saying all that is required is limited Wi-Fi connection. Student through the year keeps getting additional stuff which you can consume offline. That's one. The second more important part of the system revolves around assessments, right? I was talking to you about how we want to use this to kind of help teachers quickly assess learning outcomes. Again, on the portal, what teachers have is a full-fledged online assessment system where the assessment creation and conducting of assessments become very easy. What does it mean? This is the kind of interface a teacher has. All she has to do is go out there and say, listen, for example, in grade 9, I want to create a test for math, which is a 1.5 hour test. I can quickly say, listen, I want to add a multiple choice section, a fill in the blank section, or review the section. Once I create the template, now here's the part where a lot of online platforms struggle. Now what about adding questions? It becomes very cumbersome for teachers to type lots and lots of questions. That's where what we do is we actually offer a solid question bank of 80,000 questions, and this has actually been sourced from some of the top publishers in the country, where the teacher can say, listen, if I'm teaching a particular topic, say force, I want to look at in force, for example, gravitational force is what the concept I want to look at. Within that, I want to look at easy questions, or I want to look at questions as per Bloom's taxonomy, which is either application based or knowledge based or understanding based. I can actually filter my questions, pick whichever questions I want, and create a test paper very easily. I can obviously then preview the test paper. I can say, listen, I want to look at does this make sense or not. But more importantly, I can push it to the student on the device. And this is again where we have, we have very interesting innovation, right? The way this works is typically a lot of online tests fail in the classroom because all the students are attempting to access the Wi-Fi simultaneously. Here, the way it works is the student actually just goes to the assessment section. He's actually told the previous day itself that, listen, I have published a test, download it and come to class. So as a student, for example, I've been given a practice test in science. I actually I download a test, but when I try to take a test, it asks for a password. What does this mean? The test has been pre-downloaded, but it's offline. When I need to take a test in class, when the teacher says, listen, now is the time to take a test, that's when the teacher gives the password maybe on the board, the student enters the password, and then he's able to take the test, right? And like I showed you earlier, the student obviously gets instant feedback, right? But also, more importantly, right? So the student, once he submits the test, obviously gets instant feedback. He knows, for example, what his percentage is. He also gets data like accuracy, attempt rate. But more importantly, the teacher gets insights across class. The teacher knows, for example, what is the highest score, what is the lowest score, what is the average score that each student is scoring, right? The teacher obviously knows across questions how performance is. So she knows, for example, question 7 and question 10 were the difficult ones. I can quickly, remedy that in class. I can quickly review that concept again and take action on that. So the whole process of understanding how children are learning, the learning outcomes, becomes very, very easy using the platform, right? This entire application gets loaded, right? Also what happens is the student gets detailed reports. So for the parent, I can generate individual reports for the student saying how my child has performed versus the topper versus the class average. And this can get emailed to the student on his particular device, right? Now this entire application gets installed on the device and is right that a student has. The most important feature also is the fact that while the content is available offline, and all I need to do is periodically synchronize to the Wi-Fi, which means the infrastructure requirements are very limited. The second thing is that one of the big concerns that schools or parents or teachers have is that, listen, tablets means a lots of distractions in the classroom, right? Now, a unique aspect of what we do is, and specifically to Samsung devices, we also have the ability to lock the Samsung devices down, which means we make them purely educational devices. Students are not able to, access other stuff like Facebook or internet, right, or video games, etc. So a lot of the worries that you have as far as distractions are concerned, all those distractions are prevented. You don't have to worry about the fact that in the class the child is, for example, looking at unwanted material. So we actually have a full-fledged security solution around these particular devices. We also have the ability in Samsung for device-to-device communication, which means teachers in the classroom can live take control of devices, which is lockdown devices, block it, etc., right? So that's a quick overview of the kind of solutions that are being deployed in schools. Obviously, the solution will get customized to each individual school based on A, the curriculum and the content that they use, B, the philosophy that they have. So a lot of schools may say, listen, I want to emphasize a lot more about interaction within the classroom. Some may say, listen, I mean, what are the kind of infrastructure challenges that you have? Taking all of these into account, the flavors would vary across schools. Yeah. So again, to re-emphasize, right, the whole idea of why these tablets are taking off is really because three key benefits is what students are getting, schools are getting: lightening the bag, engaging the student, and empowering the teacher, right? What is happening in terms of the macroeconomic drivers? Obviously, the big drivers are what the government is doing in terms of encouraging the use of technology, both in the form of policies like Digital India, as well as specific initiatives by like Udaan, where tablets are being given to children, or tablets being handed out in government schools. That's one big area. The other big area is obviously some of the dynamics that we're seeing around regulatory and regulations and code. There's a whole push around lightening the weight of the bag for the child. So they've been almost schools are being nudged into adopting technologies like tablets, and of course the entire macroeconomic trend of availability of better quality devices at affordable prices. Together, all of this is resulting in schools actually adopting this solution and seeing tangible and visible benefits. In fact, what we used to talk about really last year was that tablets are all about the future of learning. This is what the future is. But what we are seeing increasingly is, for this academic year, we are also seeing that kids are already ahead of us. We're seeing that they already have devices out there. What we're increasingly seeing that this is not of the future is already here. Students are actually adopting technology and tablets, and it's the implementation of tablets in schools actually a phenomenon that's here. It's not a concept that's theoretical and out there in the air. That's pretty much the big message from my side. I mean, I had planned a session for 30 minutes. Looks like we're bang on time. I would now like to throw the floor open to questions. Over to Anu for this. Anu, are you there?
Thank you for that presentation, Mr. Ramesh. We have some questions lined up for you. So
Yeah.
we'll be starting with the first question that has come up. Mr. Meet has asked this, that you mentioned in your presentation that if given a chance, you would pick up a print book and not a digital one. So he asked that what is the way of convincing parents who still would want to be associated with a print book rather than a digital book? So how do we convince them for letting their children have access to tablets for educating them?
Okay, that's a fair question, and I think that's a question probably on a lot of people's mind, right? So
Yeah.
one of the big processes when schools are going around implementing one-to-one devices is obviously getting all the stakeholders on board, and all the stakeholders definitely mean teachers as well as parents, right?
Yeah.
What everybody is pretty sure about is that when you put technology in the hands of students, students are definitely very comfortable with technology. The challenge is, what about teachers? What about parents, right? The
Yeah.
way we do this obviously is, one, as far as teachers are concerned, so I will just expand the question. I will say for teachers, obviously one of the big things is obviously making the solution very, very friendly for teachers, plus supplementing this with professional development and training. But for parents, one of the key things we talk about is actually do live hands-on workshops with parents where they get to see the benefit of what the student getting. Many a times, parental concerns come across because they don't understand the solution fully. They just assume that you're scanning books and putting it on tablets and say, what is the fun? The minute they start seeing that there's a lot of enrichment happening, and that this is a lot about, these are about next generation books, that is books that are interactive, come to life, and dynamically keep getting uploaded by teachers. One is, a lot of their concerns come on board. The second thing is, when we're actually implementing this in schools, typically the year 1 and 2, the print books are not being replaced fully. What is happening is that the print books also are there, but they're typically being asked by parents to keep the print books at home, right? The child carries only the tablet to school and back. So that way the bag obviously gets lightened. Second, parental concern about a radical transformation is addressed. And the economic model that we have with publishers actually permits you to do this in a cost-effective manner.
Okay.
I hope that addresses your question, Mr. Meet.
I hope that does. Another question that has come up from Mr. Ranjan Nair is that tablets are online gadgets which are only available at schools, which charge a bomb as school fees. What about the schools in rural zones? Is there any arrangement being done by your organization for them?
Okay, so the first, I think one of the things that one of the popular perceptions around is that this whole concept of technology is obviously for the elite schools. Obviously, because everybody says, listen, these tablets need to be made accessible and affordable for students. But
Yeah.
one thing I'd like to share is that the impact of this particular technology is far greater in affordable schools and in interiors, right? I showed you a few snaps, and probably go back to showing you some of the snaps, right? So, for example, I mean, you'll see some of these initiatives. So, if you see snaps like this, or even snaps like these, right? These are actually initiatives that are, sorry, one sec, I will, right? Initiatives that are happening in government schools and low-end private schools. In fact, we have case studies of at least 2 schools in Hyderabad. These are affordable private schools where the annual fee structure was just 9,000 rupees per year. And here the parents actually said, no, we want tablets for our particular students. And what happened there was, we worked with a few, financing institutions that helped the parents get the devices on installments. These schools are in fact my most successful schools as far as implementation is concerned, but because we actually have tangible and visible improvements in learning outcomes among the students, and the parental satisfaction is among the highest, right? In terms of technology, the technology supports this because this is about a device that can be used anywhere offline. I think the key constraint revolves around financing, and you'll be glad to know that in fact Samsung itself does a lot of work with microfinance institutions, etc., to make these devices affordable and available for parents of this segment.
Cool. I think that answers the query of Mr. Nair. And on those lines, we have another viewer, Meghna Sinha, who has asked that will digital education help children learn better than an interactive session with books and teachers teaching, or will it decrease the effectiveness of the whole education system?
Okay, so I think the way I look at this question is it's not either or. I think without a doubt, the most powerful part of the learning experience is the live interaction that a teacher and a student has in the class, because that is a human experience. As a teacher, I can look at what students are doing. Students can look at me, right? That entire human experience is most critical. There is no doubt about it, right? In fact, we are very, very clear. We should not be putting a screen between the teacher and the student and reduce human interaction. The technology has to be used to improve and better the human interaction that is available among students. How does that happen? The model there is very simple. The idea is when the child is learning by himself, instead of him staring at a static, dumb book, there an enriched, engaging book is a lot more powerful. That is something that we're very, very sure about, and that's something we've experienced. Second thing we're saying is the idea of a technology is for if a teacher can understand using technology how well students are following, how the whole whether students are learning or not learning, she can then remedy this in a live classroom. That's where again technology comes in. Our entire concept and something we're very, very clear about is that technology has to enhance the classroom experience, not take it down, and that's precisely how schools in India are implementing the entire concept. So I think it's about both of them supplementing each other. It's not about in any ways technology replacing the teacher.
Absolutely, I think it is about supplementing the thing. Also, there on those lines only, we have another caller, Megha, who has just called in, and she has sent this question saying that how can you be sure that the teachers don't feel threatened by this digital technology that has come in? Probably the teachers might think that they are getting replaced with the tablet education, and the children stop valuing the teachers as much as they do now.
Yeah, so I think that's just kind of building on the point that I made earlier, right? I think at no point in time is the technology trying to undermine the role of the teacher or replace the teacher, and this is something that has to be communicated in explicit terms to teachers, right? What it does do, however,
Yeah.
is that instead of it says that see, if you look at teachers today, teachers have multiple things to do, right? They have to typically, for example, they have to teach in a class, they have to prepare for the class, but they also have to do a lot of administration stuff, right? Like, for example, administering assessments or correcting assessments, entering the data, right? All of that. What we are saying is technology should come in and make a lot of that part very, very efficient. Technology needs to come in and make that the life of the teacher easy as far as the administration part is concerned. But the more core teaching, the more core human part of the interaction is something that teachers are still the most critical. And yes, there is bound to be some fear from teachers on some of it, and it's very important for us to address that head on and educate it. What we've seen is the best way to address is actually do live deployments. Once live deployments happen, that's when teachers really understand how their role is enhanced, and that's when a lot of these insecurities a teacher has get overcome.
All right, that answers the question from Megha. Another question we have from Mr. Shubhayan. He says that what lies ahead for you to make this plan a success, and what are the challenges you are facing in implementing the program that you are seeing?
Okay, so obviously, I think one thing is very, very clear, right? This program only works when multiple stakeholders come on board, right? What do we mean by that? We mean by school managements. We mean teachers, school leaders, parents. All of them have to come on board. So we have realized that the first challenge is the process of getting all stakeholders to come on board and then set expectations and deliver, right? what the way we are addressing this challenge is by saying, let's do this methodically, let's do this in a phased manner. This is not about, just, buying, a few fancy devices and just putting it as a kit in school. This is about
Yes.
gradual transformation, and we obviously have teams across the country that work towards actually work with schools for this transformation. One of the things we also do
Yeah.
is we work as an ecosystem. That is, we also have teams from Samsung which are dedicated for education. We have publisher teams, so teams from publishers like Oxford University Press or Britannica or Macmillan, publishers like Tata ClassEdge, Destination Success. All of us are working together to kind of make this next level of education come alive in class.
Yeah. Okay.
So just on that note, right now, Anu, one of the things I'd like to do is I'd just like to turn the participants' attention to the screen again, right? I was talking about the school, the affordable private school. I'll just quickly walk you through 3 slides on it. So this was a school, like I said, which adopted tablets for grade 9 students back in 2013 itself, right? And what is interesting is this school had, typically the parents in these schools are, were, ayahs in hospitals or, mechanics, etc. So this is a really low-end school. And what would happen is the school would conduct regular classes from 9 to 3 and 3 to 5 would be study hour in the class. And every day the children would revise what is being taught by the teacher on the tablet and also do one test. So for example, biology test on Monday, physics test on Tuesday, social studies on Wednesday, like that, right? This particular school, I mean, this is the kind of infrastructure of schools for you to get a right? And this is a live deployment. This is not like this parents actually paid for this, right? And we actually got a third-party company to come in and check the learning levels, what happened. And this is the impact of the study. They actually showed a 16% visible improvement in math scores, right? And obviously the score was more in the 25 to 50 percentage category, percentile category students, right? So this is not an elite technology alone. This is technology that is a lot more accessible and a lot more mass.
Okay. Okay. So another question which has come from this viewer named Preeti, she asked that how do you advise the 5-year-olds to make use of the tablet? Because as parents, we need to worry about their eyesight and addiction to games, etc. as well.
Okay. So I'll take this question in 2 parts. First is, you're talking specifically about 5-year-olds, but the other is more about concerns around eyesight and concerns around the health implications of tablets, right?
Yeah.
The first piece, as far as 5-year-olds are concerned, so today, I think it's very clear that, for 2-year-old, 3-year-old, 4-year-old, 5-year-old, 6-year-old, etc., phones or tablets are becoming like babysitters, right? So if you go to a restaurant, you'll see a family, they're probably ordering food and they just give their phone to the child and the child keeps quiet, right? Now that's not a very healthy trend, there's no doubt about it. From an education solution point of view, our solutions and interventions of 1:1 tablets in classrooms really are focused on grade 3 and beyond. So typically we don't look at 5-year-olds, 6-year-olds, 7-year-olds using this technology, right? We say let it continue to remain for whatever little interactions they have at home, more for edutainment. Now, for 3-year-old to 12, for students of grade 3 to grade 12, there are concerns around health, right? And here again, I think the approach is, we have to kind of distill the wheat from the chaff, right? There are a lot of myths regarding harmful nature of tablets, and there are some genuine concerns. For example, radiation is a concern that is come in from bromide TV days. Today LCD screens, etc., there's no radiation, right? However, there are, if you're staring at a tablet continuously for 3 hours, 4 hours, will your eyesight get affected? I think definitely there is a concern out there. And this is a lot more true when you look at stuff like video games or movies, etc., right? So kids is constantly, and the reason this happens is 2 reasons. One is, if I'm constantly staring at a screen for 3 hours, 4 hours, without blinking, especially when I'm engrossed in a game or something, yes, my eyes will get strained. The answer to this is to give breaks. You should not look at it constantly for 3 hours to 4 hours. And thankfully, this is not a challenge in educational content, because educational content is not so intense, it's not so engrossing. You don't expect kids to stare at for 3 hours, 4 hours. The other concern around screens is that kids are only staring at, their eyesight is trained to look at 15 centimeters, 30 centimeters. That is, you're only focusing near sight. You're not going out and playing. If you go out and play, then your eyes are also accustomed to focusing outside. Your eyes have to look at both near sight and far sight. And this is again something to be addressed. This is not about screens being harmful. This is about anything indoors being harmful. So if you're spending a lot of time reading, etc., then also the harm is there. I think the answer to this is balance, some amount of common sense. You want to make sure that you harness the benefits of technology without falling prey to some of the potential challenges around technology.
Okay, so I think that answers the question regarding 5-year-olds, and I'm sure Ms. Sharma would now be comfortable giving the tablet to her 5-year-old too. So the next question comes from Shahid Hussain, who asks, how and from where do we start implementing this solution? Like, from which class to start? If if the schools want to try it as a pilot project, if possible.
Yeah. So what we're saying is, like we said, right? We've deployed solutions, right from grade 3 to grade 12, as far as schools are concerned. Of course, we've also done this in engineering colleges and medical colleges in MBA. But if you're a school, I would say middle school is the ideal place to start. Either a grade 6 or a grade 7 is probably the right stage to start off with. There are schools that say I will do this across middle school. So either you say grade 5 and 6 or only grade 6 or grade 7. I think that's the ideal grade for you to start. I guess, specifically, of course, based on the nature of the syllabus that you have, based on the nature of infrastructure you have, based on the kind of faculty you have, you may choose a call within those grades, which is the appropriate grade for you to start.
Okay. On those lines only, another viewer named Bhuvneshwaran Kumar, he asked, do you have similar modules for higher education, like engineering and technology streams? Are you planning on anything on those lines?
Yeah, so I think the objective of this webinar was to focus on schools, but since you bring it up, the exact similar solution has also been deployed in engineering colleges, medical colleges, as well as management institutions, right? So customers like SRM University in Tamil Nadu has adopted this for engineering colleges. SRM University in the medical MBBS students in SRM for grade 1, for year 1, 2, and now 3 all have tablets equipped with curriculum for them. Definitely, the solution is applicable even for higher ed. There are slight differences in the way it's delivered, but the core solution remains exactly the same.
Okay. Another viewer named Ankur Garg, he has asked that is it a good approach to initiate use of digital devices right from school for better knowledge transfer? But how do we justify the overuse of tablets and mobile devices by children, and which thereby affect their eyes and health, as we mentioned in the previous questions?
Okay, so I think, see, one of the things we must understand is that our kids today are, growing up in an environment which is very different from when we grew up, right? These kids are now going to, once they kind of graduate and, when they're 23, 24, the kind of jobs they'll be doing don't even exist today, right? The whole world is changing. Second, they're going to be competing in a global marketplace, right? So the kid in the US, kid in Europe, kid in the Middle East, kid in India, all of them are going to compete for the same jobs. So I don't think we have a choice as far as exposing the children to technology is concerned. Children have to start using technology so that they are equipped for the future. The choice we have is how do you use the technology, right? Because there are a lot of challenges. So because kids are, for example, enamored by screens and spend a lot of time on playing games or videos, for us to say, listen, hang on, I don't want to use the technology for learning, is throwing the baby out with the bathwater. We have to come up with a solution where they use it positively, they use it for helping learning while addressing other challenges, that is, make sure that they don't get distracted, make sure that they don't spend too much time playing games, video games, etc. That is the answer, and that is exactly the solution that is being deployed by a lot of these leading schools. You must remember, all of these schools are schools that have built reputation over the last, for example, St. George's College in Missouri, it's a 167-year-old institution, Catholic Jesuit institution. They have adopted tablets for students starting from grade 4 to grade 12. Obviously, they have really considered the pros and cons before taking this particular decision. Definitely, there will be a few challenges that need to be addressed, but that's precisely the role of companies like ours and publishers to work with schools to address these challenges, to harness the benefit of technology while making sure the harmful effects are suppressed and handled.
Okay. Another viewer, Mr. Krishnan Iyer, he asked that why tablets cannot fully replace books. Don't you think using both e-books and the print books would increase the expense to double, as e-books and traditional paper books come almost at the same price, and it might be a little too much for the pockets of a middle class parent?
Okay, so the first thing is that see, we are advocating the use of print and ebook really more in the short term as a transition, right? Eventually, books will transform to ebooks, right? The idea is not to continue to have both print and ebook for long time. It's more like a 1 year or 2 year process. In fact, in higher ed, it's typically just ebooks replace print books. So in these engineering colleges, MBA institutions that we talk about, students just opt for digital books. Why does that happen? Because their parents are not involved. It's just students, right? Students are comfortable. They say, "Boss, ebook is good enough," and they move on with it. Coming to schools, the way we work is we actually not saying that the cost is double. We're working with publishers to come up with what we call bundle pricing. That is, if a print book costs 100 rupees, right? We're saying digital books, right? If you're buying a print book, you will get for an additional 40 or 50 rupees, you'll also get the digital copy of the book. So really, in 150 rupees, both print and digital is available. This is something called bundle pricing, and this is largely in the case of private publishers. In the case, of course, for NCERT, etc., we don't get involved, right? NCERT books are freely available online, so there's no double cost itself, right? Students just download NCERT books, and there's no challenge. But your concern is genuine, and we're working across the industry and ecosystem to make sure that we find a balance and address this concern as well.
Okay, so we have another viewer named Ashish Mehta. He asked that do you think the stakeholders are comfortable using the technology? The students do they really know how to use the tablets? And also the school teachers might not be that comfortable with using with the usage of tablets. So how do you think we can speed up that process?
Yeah. So I think, so when you said stakeholders, see, students, there's absolutely no concern, right? They understand this technology. There are a few students in the class that probably don't. They figure it out literally in 5-10 minutes, right? One of the things we underestimate is the power of peer learning, right? So when we hand out tablets in schools, the minute we hand out tablets and we try to do an orientation to students, they just stop listening to us because they just go into the tablet and figure it out among themselves. If I don't understand something, I'll ask my friend and my friend explains it to me. So students, I think, is not a concern at all. If anything else, students are far ahead of us as far as their understanding of technology is concerned. Teachers, again, everybody's concern is how do you get teachers on board with technology. One of the observations that we've had is, in fact, some of these schools, we've had teachers who are probably, aged 50 or 55, who really don't know how to operate a PC, and they're really scared of going operating a PC, right? They say, no, forget it, I don't want to go, I don't want to understand how to learn a PC, I don't need to learn this at this age. What we've started to see is all of these same teachers already are carrying smartphones. They already are comfortable with mobile technology. They understand various functionality of an Android phone and starting to use it. And therefore, we found that it's far easier to introduce mobile-based technology to these teachers than the traditional technology interventions that happened 4-5 years back. However, having said that, that's not enough. We obviously then work with teachers to handhold them and get them on board. Like I mentioned, it's a transformation. But what happens is because the technology is in the child's hands first, the teachers almost feel that extra, push or pull to quickly catch up with children and get ahead in technology, and that's something we've experienced firsthand. So I guess the short answer to the question is don't worry. These concerns are not you don't need to be as concerned, and yes, whatever little concerns you have are being addressed as we speak.
We have the last question for the webinar. The question comes from Ms. Malini from Mumbai. She asks, my 7-year-old kid spends most of his time on screen, be it laptop, mobile phone or TV screen. I'm extremely worried about him. Is there any gatekeeping software which could help me filter out the content for the consumers that the kid consumes?
So hang on. So let me understand this a little better, right? Is a concern that the child is spending too much time on the screen, or the concern is that while he's on the screen, he could go into unwanted material. For the second concern, yes.
While on the screen, he could also go to some unwanted material. So that is the question of the mother. That is there any software which could filter out the content?
There are definitely softwares that help create a secure and safe environment for kids on devices, right? I mean, of course, for a 2-year-old kid, we are not the right people. So our software really works on for a school kid. But there are multiple applications that help you address this concern. But I think the larger concern of the child spending a lot of time on the screen, I think that's something that you need to proactively play a role as a mother. Start exposing the kid to a lot of other stuff beyond this technology. Yeah.
Okay, Mr. Kara, as we're I think that does. So, Mr. Kara, we are approaching the end of the webinar. Will you be comfortable answering 2 more questions, because a lot of questions are coming up?
Yeah,
okay.
Sure.
So we have this question. We have this question from Miss Rupa Chakravarti. She asked that in many of the areas in rural India, do you feel that this will enhance the children's learning experience in that area? And also, by 2020, how many schools do you think will benefit from tablets?
Okay, so see that this will help a child in rural India is a given. There's absolutely no doubt about that, right? Because now, as far as how many tablets are going to penetrate in rural India, I think a lot of that depends on the government policies, right? In fact, right now, like I mentioned, right, we did an entire project with the AP state government where government model school students were given tablets, tribal welfare department students were given tablets, and government is preparing budgets, 2,000 crores, 3,000 crores, all for handing out tablets for students. So I think, but how much is that number going to be? I mean, obviously, I have no idea, right? It all depends on the government and the kind of allocation that they make, but the number is going to be significant. I think on that there is absolutely no doubt.
Okay, the last question for the day. What is the right time in the year to implement this program? Can it be implemented in the middle of academic year? And it would be difficult to ask parents to invest in the mid-academic year for teachers. It would be difficult to move to, and for teachers, it would be difficult to move on to some other learning experience through the tablets. And another question is this: a person named Gaurav Prasad, he asked, what do you recommend should be the monetary distribution between parents and schools to buy a tablet if they put in such kind of program in their schools?
Okay, so the first question, right? What is the right time to implement this? To be honest, any time is the right time, right? So we have schools that have implemented this obviously April, June, July, August, September, even October, right? Modern School Barakamba Road, for example, implemented in October last year, right? The advantage of implementing in the beginning of the year is that you can say, listen, it's part of the academic process, but the advantage of implementing in the middle of the year is you can give additional focus to this entire implementation, right? Parents, the point is the biggest investment for parents is the device, and the device doesn't get used just for a year, right? Device gets used over a period of 2.5, 3, even 3.5 years. So it's possible even, for example, in August to call parents in and say, listen, this is the overall concept we're having. This is the implementation. Parents are completely on board as long as you message it out, in a sensible manner, right? As far as teachers are concerned, again, it does make sense many a time, because at the beginning of the year, teacher has 20 other things to worry about. Doing it in the middle of the year has benefits in the sense that after you've set the academic year in process, now you specifically talk about this particular intervention. And remember, none of this is about changing traditional teaching, right? It is about transforming step by step. So if this is going to come and completely, mess things up the way you're doing in the classroom, then clearly it's not been properly designed. That is not the idea. The idea is to take it to one notch higher. So it's never too late to start off on something like this. Okay, the second question you had was, Anu, can you repeat that?
The second question was, what do you recommend the monetary distribution should be between the parents and schools if they plan on something like a mutual monetary distribution program to buy a tablet?
So I think, there's no doubt about the fact is this, the stakeholder here is the parent, right? the parent has to,
Yeah.
the student has to own the tablet, right? Some of the schools have this thought of, I will buy 50 tablets, 100 tablets and hand it over to students and students will start using it. These models typically have failed. The reason they failed is that, when the child takes the tablet home, see, the real power is the tablet at home, right? If the child takes the tablet home, the parent then says, hey, listen, this is school property, let's put the tablet aside, I want to give it back, etc. So it doesn't get used. Eventually, the model is what is popularly called BYOD, bring your own device. The parent brings his device, right? And then he therefore is invested in the success of the project. Obviously, the school's investments is in the form of infrastructure in terms of small Wi-Fi zones in schools, training teachers, getting the solution up and running. So school has to make the investment, the soft investment, but the more capital expenditure kind of stuff is something the parents have to invest. That's the model that we've seen has worked the most.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Karna. I think that answers all the questions of our viewers, and I hope we continue to have such webinars on the introduction of tablets in the system of education so that it helps not only the students but also the teachers, and it helps improve the overall quality of education system that we have in India. And with that, we thank you for that wonderful and informative presentation on the use of tablets. And with that, we'll end the
Thank you,
webinar.
Anu. Thank you, Anu, to the pleasure. And thanks once more to all the participants for joining. Look forward to any further interactions, queries that you might have. Right? I'll sign off. Thank you.